Hello, Math 7 friends. We're going to do lesson 6.5, which is on solving multi-step equations, but then this one is a little bit more specific in that it is with parentheses. So there are two methods or two ways to solve these questions out. You kind of can do what's best for you or what's best for the equation, but let's go ahead and get started. Method one is to distribute. So whenever you see a number outside of parentheses, very similar to what we have been doing in the past, you're going to take this number 2 and you're going to distribute to both of the terms. So 2 times x, we have a 2x, and then 2 times a positive 4 gives us a positive 8, and we still have equals 20. So again, you can continue drawing that line down the center. You do not have to. We look at the side with the variable. So this side has the variable, which means that I'm going to do the reverse order of ops. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So since I did it over there, I also need to do it over here. Remember, these steps are extremely important. You need to show solving equations by solving them on both sides. So then on the left, all I have left is 2x equals, and then 20 take away 8. I now have 12. Last step, to get x by itself, I'm going to divide by that coefficient that's attached to the x. So divide both sides by 2. Final answer is x equals 6. Remember, you can quickly check that. You do not necessarily have to, but 2 parentheses, 6 plus 4 equals 20. I know order of ops, I would add these two together. 2 times 10 does in fact equal 20 because I know that 20 equals 20. This one checks out. So that one, really nothing new. We know how to distribute that number outside of the parentheses. But the second method you can choose to do if you have a number outside of a parentheses, and that's all you have on that side. So when that is the case, you can take that 2, and instead of distributing, you can divide both sides by that coefficient or that term outside. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, divide both sides by 2. Because if I were to treat this like 2 times something, I know the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So that's why I'm going to divide by this number that's outside of our parentheses. So then what I have left over, when I take 2 divided by 2, that's just the number 1, or just what is left inside the parentheses. So just x plus 4 equals. And then 20 divided by 2 gives us 10. And then our last step here is just to get x by itself. So I subtract 4 on both sides. Final answer here is x equals 6. Notice we do get the exact same answer that we did when we distributed. So again, this is just a personal preference. Most of you will probably do this method 1. So if you're listening right now, go ahead and underline the word method 1. But again, you kind of have choices there. Let's go ahead and look at the you try question. So this, again, is the exact same problem that we're going to solve out using the distributive property and using the divided. Make sure that you are looking up at the examples that we just completed and go ahead and follow those same steps. Obviously, these ones are in different orders. So if it makes more sense for you to switch these two things around, because of the commutative property, we can do that. So -6 times 6 plus the variable d equals 18. You can do that. You don't necessarily have to, but then we could see that -6 is on the outside of our equation, that is going to be what we distribute, and that's going to be what we divide by. So go ahead and pause the video, work out both of these answers, and obviously we should end up with the same thing, working it completely different. So go ahead and pause. Alrighty, so I'm going to work this one with you. We're going to distribute. So -6 times 6 is -36. Make sure that you do have a negative there. And then -6 times d is a -6d, and that equals 18. So again, if you want to draw your line down, then I want to get the side with the variable. So this side, I know that here is a negative or a -36. That's what I need to move first. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides. So then when I do that, I now have -6d equals 54. And then our last step is to get d all by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by this coefficient out front. So I'm going to divide by -6, divide by -6. Final answer here is d equals -9. Box that answer in. Then we can also do the same thing with dividing. So again, we're going to take this number that is outside of the parentheses, even though that is the parentheses, or that -6 is also inside of parentheses. You're going to divide both sides by that number, -6. So all I have left on this left side, when I divide this out, I just get 1 So I just get 6 plus d equals, and then over here I end up with -3. Then my last step over here is I'm going to do the opposite of this +6. So the opposite of +6 is a -6. So I'm going to subtract 6 or do the opposite of that. And I end up with d equals a -3, and a -6 does give us a -9. We end up with that same answer. Hopefully you got -9 for both of those. We're going to do a couple more practice problems, and then you're going to try 2 more. So the next one, now this one looks a little challenging because of that fraction, but remember in lesson 6.3, we dealt with rational coefficients, which were the decimals and then the fractions. So again, you have options. You can choose whether you want to distribute or whether you want to divide both sides. Okay, so I'm actually going to do both, and I highly encourage you to do both as well. But if you are very much set on one method over the other, then obviously you can just show your work or just pick the problem that I'm working with that work. So I got 5/9 equals 40. Okay, so I'm going to show this side, I'm going to show the distribute. So when we distribute, we're going to distribute the 5/9 to the t. So I got 5/9 t. Hate using the variable t. Then right here, you're also going to distribute here. So then plus 4/1 times 5/9. You see how dicey we're about to get? And that whole thing equals 40. Okay, then going from there, I know that this first term, the 5/9 t, this is going to stay. But when we multiply this one straight across, or you could, nope, we can't cross simplify here. So we end up with 5/9 t plus, and this one is 20/9 equals 40. Okay, we're going to continue solving this one out. So the next thing that we would do, if this were to be a whole number, we would want to subtract that whole number because it's the opposite of adding 20/9. So -20/9 minus 20/9. Look at all this fun we're about to have. So now we have 5/9 t equals, now 40 minus 20/9, if I were to write that out over here, so 40 minus 20/9, we couldn't do because this is like 40/1. So first we need to get a common denominator. I'm going to multiply this one by 9. Same thing up here. So my common denominator is 9. I get 360/9 minus 20/9. When I subtract those two things out, I get 340/9. Holy moly. 340/9. Okay, so notice how this one with the fraction is getting really dicey. So that's why this next method, so if we use the dividing method, it's going to make our lives way easier when we see a fraction coefficient. So then our last step here, when you see 5/9 t, instead of dividing by 5/9, remember we don't show that work. Instead, we multiply by the reciprocal. So times 9/5 times 9/5. So this is going to help big time because we can see that the 9s are going to cross simplify. So now I just get t equals 340/5. And then we do need to simplify that out. And when I divide that out, I end up with t equals 68. Whew. All right, so now I'm going to work that same problem, but only now I'm going to use the dividing method. So when we divide, remember we don't divide by this fraction 5/9. This is what I would want to do, right? Divide by 5/9. But instead, we're going to multiply by that reciprocal. So I'm just going to say t plus 4, 5/9. So instead, we're going to multiply by 9/5. 40, and then times 9/5. So I'm just multiplying both sides by the reciprocal rather than dividing. So then what that does is that cross simplifies all this. So all I have left on the left side is t plus 4 equals. And then on the right side, I am going to cross simplify. So this one right here, we get 8 times 9, which is 72. And then our last step already is just to subtract 4 on both sides. Final answer here is t equals 68. So notice I get the exact same answer. Took about a fourth of the time because I didn't have to deal with adding and subtracting fractions, which no one likes. Nobody likes that. So in this instance, whenever you see a fraction, the dividing method, which is really multiplying by the reciprocal, is a little bit easier. Okay, holy moly. The next question is number 2. And for this one, again, we're going to work both methods. So you can just show the work for the one that you like a little bit better. But this one will go a little bit faster, I promise you. It was negative 60. We're going to do the distributive first. So negative 8 times x is negative 8x. And negative 8 times 3 is a negative 24. And that whole thing equals negative 60. Next step here. You want to deal with the side with a variable and deal with the order of operations reverse. So add 24 both sides. So now I have negative 8x equals, and then when I subtract that out, I get negative 36. And then to get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by that coefficient. Remember, the coefficient is negative 8, which means that I need to divide by negative 8. So our final answer here is x equals 4.5. And that's going to be positive. So I'm going to box that in. Or you can work it this way, and we can divide by this number that's on the outside. So divide by negative 8, divide by negative 8. So in this instance, distributing is probably a little bit easier. The reason being is 60 divided by 8 is not a nice number. So I would have to do 60 divided by 8 off to the side, which is 7.5. So then x plus 3 equals 7.5. Subtract 3 both sides. Final answer, x again equals the 4.5. So you can choose. Either do that 60 divided by 8 over there, but we also clearly had to do it here because 36 divided by 8 wasn't that nice number. But that's when the instance of distributing is a little bit easier because you're dealing with some smaller numbers at the end. All right, so we have done lots of questions with distributing and with dividing. So now you get to choose whether you want to distribute, whether you want to divide. It is completely up to you. But I want you to go ahead and pause the video, try these 2 questions on your own, and then push play to check your answer once you're done. Alrighty, so I know that this is not the first notes that you have done, but remember, if there's anything that you are unsure of, please go back, rewatch. There's no reason for you to move on, and then the last question you just say, I'm confused. Okay, that's why we do notes like this. Make sure that you are understanding. That way problems make a little bit more sense to you. So I'm going to work each one of these different ways. So this first one, because I see that fraction, rather than distributing to create more fractions, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So if you chose to distribute, that's fine. I'm going to multiply by 3 over 2. Reason being, this all gets canceled out, and I just have p minus 1 on the left side. And then on the right, I know that it's negative 6 over 1 times 6 or 3 over 2. I can cross simplify. This becomes a 3. So when I multiply straight across, I just get negative 9 over 1, or negative 9. And then I add 1 both sides. Final answer here, I got p equals negative 8. How did we do? Did we do okay? Hopefully we did all right. If not, I want you to fix the work. If you went ahead and distributed, your work obviously is going to be just a little bit different. But go ahead and keep your work, especially if you got p equals negative 8. If you did not get p equals negative 8, I would go ahead and erase your work and work it the way that I did. Okay, because I worked that last one, dividing really, but it's multiplying by the reciprocal. This one I'm going to distribute. So now I get a positive 35 r's. And then minus 50 on that side. This side just still has the 20. And then I'm going to add 50 to both sides. So now I get 70 equals 35r. Last step here, I'm going to get r by itself, divide both sides by that coefficient. So then I get 2 equals r. However, I'm not done because you must flip these around. So our final answer does need to be r equals 2. Go ahead and box in that answer. Alrighty, kind of a lot thrown at you, but whenever you see parentheses like this, you have 2 options. Most of the time, people choose to just distribute. When it does get a little dicey is when you see a fraction. So just kind of keep this in mind, have these notes out when you work the problems, and good luck on them.